Hi, this is Isaac Fowler, and for my project I've used the 1984 re-election campaign ad for President Ronald Reagan. At the time, President Reagan was running for re-election, and though some things in the country were seemingly improving, he had dropped in the Gallup approval rating polls to a struggling 35% approximately 10 months before beginning his campaign. President Ronald Reagan needed to reassure the public that he was the man for the job since he had failed to make good on previous campaign promises of improving the American economy. To accomplish this task, he assembled a customized campaign team of advertising industry heavy hitters rather than using the same teams everyone else was using. Together, they created a series of cinematic, nostalgic, optimistic, and reassuring advertisements that cleverly diverted attention away from the real issues and instead focused the American public's attention on what that public wanted to see and hear, using impactful imagery that reinforced traditional ideals and made the audience feel safe. Most of the ads are heavy laden with images of happy Caucasian families, American flags, children, and weddings with glimpses of the layperson, farmer, and city worker. This gave the impression that Reagan was a man of the people, a patriot, a father figure, and a family man. He would also release another re-election video during this time that focused only on his wife, First Lady Nancy Reagan, and served to bolster his ratings with women. The link is included in the description. During that campaign video, he took a back seat and offered a minute of support for his wife, while images of a strong Nancy Reagan in positions of power and leadership played on the screen. Then he ends the video with the note that he couldn't have done it without her. This was a very strong message for him to send at the time, as in America, we were still seen as a patriarchal society, but women were beginning to be more outspoken and heard in regard to feminism and gender equality. All of the ads that he produced had a very cinematic look and feel, with a soft, reassuring yet fatherly voiceover and emotionally charged images that pull heavily on the heartstrings, while not being negative or bashing opponents like traditional ads would do. It was a genius campaign that worked like magic, and just like magic, it masterfully misdirected the audience's attention from the reality to the illusion. The name of the campaign ad that I'm about to show you is named Prouder, Stronger, Better.
It's morning again in America. Today, more men and women will go to work than ever before in our country's history.
So as the campaign ad starts, you notice that the sun is coming up over the city and it's the start of a new day. It's early morning. Well, the start of a new day is a metaphor for new beginnings and for change. The troubles of yesterday are behind us. It's a fresh start. We're starting over, fresh and new. Music is soft, happy, and cinematic as the campaign ad starts, making you feel as if you're starting fresh as well, and that everything is going to be fine. You see images of people happily going to work at all kinds of jobs, including a paperboy. All of this are uh, reinforcing the idea of new beginnings because the reality was that the economy really wasn't doing all that well. The voiceover reassures us that the economy is well. As the announcer states, more women and men will go back to work than ever before in our country's history. That's a play on words. Since the population was larger, there were, of course, more people, but it was a misdirection, as unemployment was up and the American deficit was larger as a result of Reagan's first term.
With interest rates at about half the record highs of 1980, nearly 2,000 families today will buy new homes, more than at any time in the past 4 years.
So the next part of the video shows people moving into a new home. As the announcer states that today, nearly 2,000 families will buy new homes. This happens over images of an American ideal of success. You literally see a white house with a white picket fence and a couple with two children. The only thing missing was the dog. The, the people are moving into a new home, which again reinforces the idea of new beginnings. But the number of 2,000 families, again, that was an unfounded projection and not necessarily fact. But the number being somewhat high reinforces the idea that the economy is doing much, much better than it originally was. The images that you see pull on the heartstrings because it focuses on family and the idea or ideal of success that normally is um, fed to us in the American public.
This afternoon, 6,500 young men and women will be married. And with inflation at less than half of what it was just 4 years ago, they can look forward with confidence to the future.
The next part of the video focuses on a wedding. Soft imagery of a happy young Caucasian couple getting married as the announcer states that inflation is down and they can move forward with confidence. Projection, again, not necessarily fact. The economy was hurting at this time, but Reagan was selling the promise and the idea that he had, could, and would continue to turn that around. The number that the announcer gave, again, 6,500 men and women will be married. We don't know that that was an exact number. Again, it was a projection, a happy projection, a realistic projection of what was possibly going to happen.
It's morning again in America. And under the leadership of President Reagan, our country is prouder and stronger and better. Why would we ever want to return to where we were less than 4 short years ago?
The last part of the video focuses on an image of kids and their parents and adults happily raising American flags in patriotic pride as the announcer reassures us that under Reagan, our country is prouder, stronger, and better, and that it's a new morning. Again, reinforcing the idea of new beginnings and change, and that change is possible when Reagan is president. Then the announcer asks us, why would we ever want to return to where we were just 4 short years ago? This is a flashback to the time before Reagan's first term when the country was in even more turmoil than it was when Reagan took office, subliminally reinforcing that things were worse before Reagan and covertly playing on the fear that if we don't keep him, then bad times will come again. Although things weren't quite as bad as they weren't great either. Reagan hadn't made that much leeway during his first term. The crack epidemic had started and was surging around this time in 1984. The country was ravaged by drugs. Incarceration rates for African American and minority communities were increasing heavily due to the drug war, and many major cities didn't look as clean and pristine as the video might imply. Many of them were still ravaged by crime, though that was improving, but not by a large margin. All of this to say that, well, the idea of America that the campaign ad was selling and trying to tell us that Reagan had produced was actually a little far from the truth. It was selling the dream and not the reality. Again, magic, absolute magic.